Hello, my name is Karissa Cordero, and I will be presenting cooling ages of hydrothermal explosions within Yellowstone National Park. So Yellowstone contains some of the largest hydrothermal explosions in the world, reaching up to 2 kilometers in diameter. These hydrothermal explosions pose an extreme risk to visitors and employees of the park. So understanding the timing of these events and the causes of these hydrothermal explosions allows for hazard assessments to be performed within the park. We determine the ages of these explosions through a geochronology technique called luminescence dating. Luminescence dating works by determining the last time a rock or grain was exposed to light or heat. When grains are deposited and buried in an area, they are subject to cosmic radiation that causes electrons within the grains to become excited. These excited electrons become trapped within the grains. This trapped charge is called the luminescent signal. When the grains are exposed to light and heat, they are given enough energy for the trapped electrons to escape. So, when there is light or heat, there are no electrons trapped, therefore no luminescent signal. But if that light and heat is removed, the luminescent signal will grow until re-exposed, as shown in this diagram. We use luminescence dating to date hydrothermal explosions within Yellowstone. Hydrothermal explosions occur when the boiling water in hydrothermal systems experiences a drastic change in pressure, and the boiling water is able to flash to steam. The steam escapes through fractures in the rocks and breaks the caprock seal of the surface. This produces a violent release of rock, steam, and water. One of the big questions we hope to determine by understanding the ages of these explosions is what's causing these explosions. Specifically, can deglaciation cause these explosions? Yellowstone was once covered by glaciers and began deglaciating between 22 and 13,000 years ago. The pressure released from the melting of these glaciers would theoretically offer the correct conditions for a hydrothermal explosion. Once that explosion occurs, the rock and sediments land on the hill slopes of the crater and begin to cool down. This is the time where the luminescent signal would begin to grow and the age we're trying to determine. So we went to Yellowstone National Park to sample these hydrothermal explosions. Here in Figure A shows a map of Yellowstone and the hydrothermal explosions within. We will be focusing on one explosion today called Pocket Basin. Figure B shows the hill shade of Pocket Basin and the different samples we have taken. We take two different types of samples, which can be shown in these figures. A just shows the overview of the crater and its active hydrothermal system. B is a sediment tube. We take these by removing the top layer of soil and pounding a steel tube into the hillside and capping the ends. This allows us to keep the sediment void of any light exposures that may damage the luminescent signal. C shows us taking rock cores from an explosion-thrown boulder. We take these two different types of samples in hopes that the ages will agree since they came from the same explosion. Once sampling is complete, we take the samples back to our lab, which is pictured in figures A, B, and C. Notice the orange color of these photos. This lab is called a dark room and is void of any fluorescent light, with our only light being this amber colored. The luminescent signal is not sensitive to the yellow wavelengths and allows us to open and process our samples safely. A and B are two areas where we prepare the samples, where figure C shows the Riso reader, which is our primary luminescence instrument. Once the samples are processed, we load them to the reader, and the reader irradiates the samples and shines the light onto the samples. We have colored filters and a photomultiplier tube that records the response the samples have to the light under different radiation conditions. And this allows us to determine the last time they were exposed to light or heat based on the amount of radiation within the samples. The results of the experiments are shown in figures A and B under results. Here we have a sediment tube aged 15.4 plus or minus 3.73 thousand years old, and a rock core which is 17.755 plus or minus 2.55 thousand years old. This means that both the sediment and the rock are showing age agreements, and also fall within the last Yellowstone deglaciation called the Pinedale deglaciation, further supporting that this explosion occurred due to deglaciation. Prior to the study, Pocket Basin was thought to have been one large explosion. However, some ages of our boulders show inconsistencies. Ballistic mapping of the boulders were completed, and this figure shows the lithologies of every boulder surrounding the crater. It shows groupings of the lithologies which may indicate multiple explosions. This map, combined with our luminescence dates, leads us to believe that we are looking at multiple explosions and that we may have the ability to distinguish between them. This leads me to my future directions. We have since returned to Yellowstone and sampled the entirety of the crater, both sediments and boulders. We hope to compare results and distinguish between these explosions, as well as expand the study to additional hydrothermal settings. Thank you.